Hi and welcome back to aasai+rasai. In this video I'm making fish cutlets, but it's going to be an easy way to do it. I'm not tempering the ingredients and I'm not adding certain traditional fish cutlets ingredients that we use in the Sri Lankan cutlets. But if you want the traditional one, then I have uploaded a video some years back. You can find it on my channel. I'm getting ready to steam the potatoes. Usually for cutlets we boil the potatoes, but if you cut them into about 1 centimeter thick slices and steam them, they work just as well. Also, the potatoes need to be overboiled, not like when you boil it to make curry, but it has to be really boiled so that they just kind of mash up very easily. This is canned mackerel, and if you can't find canned mackerel, you can use any kind of canned fish that you have. Just drain out the water or the oil and make sure that it's not too watery when you mince it. I'm going to debone this fish and I'm going to flake it with my hand. So when you're removing the bone, you will also find like a spinal cord in there. Just kind of take that out and discard it. The other thing to watch for are bone fragments. When you're using your fingers to mince the fish, you will find little bone fragments sometimes. So you just need to remove that and discard them. Now this looks good and ready to mince. I'm just going to rinse my hands and come back. This is the onion that I have chopped really finely, and that's important because once you start making the shape of the cutlet, sometimes the onion can prevent you from actually getting that smooth surface, or it could be a reason for the cutlet to break up when frying. So just finely chop it and leave it aside. We'll add it later once I have minced the fish. In the meantime, you can just add the lime into the fish and then start mincing it. Break up any lumps of fish as you go along. And this is a bone fragment that I just found. See, this is why I like to use my fingers when I'm flaking the fish. So now we can add the onions and then mix it up really well. So all the tiny details that I'm giving you now about mincing the fish and taking out all the bones, overboiling the potatoes, chopping the onions, all that is part of the bigger picture so that your outcome is more successful. So just kind of pay attention to the little details and you'll be making cutlets in no time at all. Some of the potatoes have been cooked through enough, but there's some that are not. So this is not ready to use. I'm going to cover the pan and let it steam for about another 5 or 10 minutes. So now the potatoes are ready. You can see how easily it will mash up. Just add it into the bowl of fish and then use the back of the spoon to push the potatoes against the bowl, and then it will easily mash up, and this is the texture you want to have. I didn't really need to use both the potatoes that I have called for in the recipe. I just needed about 1.5. So now you can see how easily I'm able to mash the potatoes when they are overboiled. So after this has been mixed, I'm going to leave it aside to rest for about 5 to 10 minutes to let out some of that steam. And any hard pieces of potatoes that are refusing to break up, just discard those. Beat the egg really well and set it aside, and then have your breadcrumbs also ready to go. Use any type of breadcrumbs you have on hand, even panko or Italian crumbs, they both work well too. This mixture has cooled and I will show you the texture in just a minute. But before that, I've added the green chili and now I'm putting the powdered ingredients. And these are some very basic ingredients: salt, pepper, ginger and garlic powder, ground mustard seeds and red chili powder. And depending on your tolerance for heat, you could increase or reduce or even leave out the chili powder and the green chilies. Notice how the mixture is very pasty. It's not sticking to my hands when I'm shaping them, and this is exactly how it should be. So if your mixture is too soft or too sticky, just add a little bit of breadcrumbs and leave it for about 10 minutes until the breadcrumbs absorb that excess liquid or excess moisture from the mixture, and then start to make the cutlets again. But you can see how it holds its shape and it's not sticking to my hands. And you just dip it in the egg like this and make sure that all areas of the cutlet has the egg on it, and then you dunk it in the breadcrumbs. It's as simple as that, and it has to be evenly coated. Also, if you want a thicker crust, you could double dip. So after you coat it in breadcrumbs, go back and dip it in the egg again and then coat it again in the breadcrumbs, and that'll give you a thicker crust if that's what you like. So as you keep making these, place them on a tray or a plate, something flat, not a bowl, and don't stack them. then leave them for about 10 minutes before frying, and that helps to create that nice crunch in the crust because it gives the breadcrumbs time to absorb the egg. It also helps the crust to adhere to the cutlet. Now those are the tips that I can share with you to get the mixture and the cutlets right up to that point. But we need to also pay attention to the oil temperature and the pan you're going to fry these cutlets in. If you're using a flimsy pan, I can guarantee you your cutlets are going to burn before you could even blink, okay? For one thing is the oil temperature in a flimsy pan tends to rise much faster and higher than if you use a heavy pan. So I'm using this cast iron pan, and what that does is it stabilizes the oil temperature. It takes a longer time to heat, but it holds the heat so that there's very little fluctuation in the oil temperature, and that helps to fry your cutlets at a very stable pace. I tested the oil temperature before I added the cutlets. I sprinkled a little bit of the breadcrumbs and they hit the pan immediately. They come to the top and sizzle away. That means your oil is ready. So I'm going to fry these for about 30 to 40 seconds on the first side, and then I'm going to turn them over and fry the other side for about 30 to 40 seconds. But along the way, I'm going to be trying to take a peek. I'm going to be moving these cutlets around and all that. But first, the 30 to 40 second time is going to harden the crust enough that you could safely lift them and turn them over. Use medium heat when frying, so that's medium on your heat setting. And then when the first batch is done, closer to when you're taking them out, you just reduce the heat to about low or medium low, and then continue to fry. And this is because by that time the oil has heated up a little too much, so you want to bring down the temperature to kind of have it stable. So there are two ways that you could notice when your oil is hot. One is that the cutlets burn really fast before it has a chance to fry. Like, you know, it hits the oil and then it starts to brown really quickly before you could even turn them around. That means your oil is way too hot. And the other thing is that it's smoking hot. Your oil should never be smoking hot when frying cutlets. So how I like to fry these cutlets is to flip them over twice. That means I fry the first side, flip it, fry it, then turn it over again, and then fry it for the second time. And this way I can get that even tone on my cutlets. If your cutlet is taking too long to brown, that means your oil temperature is not correct. It is too low. So bring up the oil temperature and try again. And if your cutlet has been sitting in the oil for too long while it browns, that means the oil is being absorbed by the cutlet as well. So that's going to cause it to just break up in the middle of frying. Another hint that I can share with you is that when the cutlets have browned and you are keeping them in the oil for too long, your oil will start to make that crackling sound. That means the water from the cutlets, the moisture in it, is getting into the oil, and that's what's making that crackling sound. So you need to take them out immediately, otherwise your cutlets can break up. To keep the cutlets crisp for longer, transfer them to a plate. Don't leave them on the paper towel for too long because that pulls out all the oil and the moisture, and then it makes the cutlets soggy. I wish I could share these cutlets with you, but the best I can do right now is to encourage you to make your own. And I hope in this video I gave you enough information and hints for you to be motivated to try. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Stay subscribed to Aasai Rasai.